yesterday when I was in Homeland Security, and Mr. Gates's question sort of put a fine point on something for me. I asked you yesterday about Americans who may be subject to crimes committed by the 836,000 that are released into the country, and what you'd have to say to them. And we went back and forth because I was having a hard time getting a straight answer, and ultimately you went back to what I hear you say a lot, that they've got the right to assert an asylum claim. But when you hear the real numbers and what Mr. Gates just asked you about, let's get the real numbers. There's 836,000 people released. There's 600,000, give or take, gotaways that Border Patrol knows they weren't able to capture because they're distracted by changing diapers and processing people. And then you've got 1.2 million people subject to an order of deportation who you're not removing. And as you said, undoubtedly, some of those 2.6 million people in the country, by your discretionary choice, will commit crimes. So I want to go back to the question I asked. Do you have anything to say to the American people, the victims of the crimes those people will commit who are here by your discretion?
Congressman, we do not tolerate the commission of crimes in the United States. We have laws to address those crimes.
Is that what you intend to tell the people who've been subject to the victims, who are the victims of the crimes?
It is. I have worked with victims of crime for more than 12 of my 20 years in government service. And so we do not tolerate the commission of crimes here in the United States against individuals present in the United States. It is not my discretionary choice. It is by operation of law, of the laws that the United States Congress has passed, that individuals who make a claim for asylum have a right to vindicate their
You're not suggesting to this committee, are you, sir? That people who are subject to an order of detention cannot be removed by law? You're not suggesting that to this committee.
That is not what I said at all.
All right. And the people, the rest of the people who you released, not all those people are required to be released, are they? You could detain them.
Congressman, we are funded for a certain number
Your budget request reduces the amount of bed space you request to detain people. Isn't that right?
Yes, our fiscal year 2023 budget requests 25,000 detention beds, and the numbers, as you have readily identified, the number of detention beds over the last many years has not met the number of individuals who are in asylum proceedings. And
so you're reducing the ones you're requesting.
Detention is used, Congressman, detention is used to address the greatest public safety threats. In the criminal justice system, there is also detention is used before a trial reaches a final adjudication. Detention is used for two purposes. Number one, to protect the public safety if there is no condition or combination of conditions that can secure the public safety during the pendency of the criminal proceedings, and two, to ensure the individual's continued appearance in proceedings.
And the rest of the people who are committing crimes, the people who are subject, who suffer the victims of the crimes, are just left on their own. You have no answer for them. Let me ask you a question about security. I've given you a lot of time, Mr. Secretary, to go on. Let me ask you about security. You've said that DHS assesses that domestic violent extremists present the greatest risk to the homeland, and that struck me. I want to ask you this question. Are you including as domestic risk, domestic violent extremist risk, those 2.6 million people who are here by your discretion?
Congressman, my statement is that domestic violent extremism represents the greatest terrorism-related threat to the homeland.
How do you know that none of the 2.6 million, including the 600,000 gotaways, you don't even know who they are, and you know 41 on the terror watch list have been encountered? How do you know those people aren't a source of risk of terrorism?
Congressman, the individuals that we have encountered on the terrorism screening database, the TSDB.
You're not answering my question. Respectful, I've got 22 seconds. I'm going to pose one more question. You know Ramzi Youssef claimed asylum, right? And you know that he got to go be released into the country on an assertion of credible fear. He was released, and 6 months later, he bombed the World Trade Center. Among the 600,000 gotaways, just that small portion, Mr. Secretary, how do you know that are you waiting for a mushroom cloud?
The time of the gentleman has expired. The witness may answer the question.
Mr. Chairman, I won't dignify that last question with a response.
The time is generally
broken last month, and next month you're going to make it worse. Agents turning their back on you when you speak, agents on video on horseback patrol doing their job. Democrats call them racist. You guys throw them under the bus. Fentanyl coming across our border like we've never seen before. Are you doing anything right when it comes to the border?
Oh, Congressman, so you mentioned I've done a tremendous number of things correct, and of which I am very proud. And let me just pick up on one element of your question, and that's the element of fentanyl. Because the effort to smuggle fentanyl into our country actually comes through the ports of entry. And we have increased the interdiction of fentanyl by quite a significant amount through the devotion of technological resources and other.
I think lots of families have been impacted by this drug. Would have a different take on that, but we appreciate what you are doing at the ports of entry. That doesn't take into account what's happening outside the ports of entry. Let me just ask you this question, because this gets to the numbers and the records that you have broken month after month after month after month, 5 months in a row, and then of course that record was just broken last month. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, your actions and your policies are encouraging migrants to come to the border? Moratorium on deportations was announced on day one by President Biden. You've ended Remain in Mexico. You've ended agreements with Northern Triangle countries. You've stopped building the wall. And in 25 days, Title 42 goes away. Do you think that's encouraging people to come to the border?
Congressman, the increase at the border is the result of a number of factors, and it's a regional phenomenon.
Maybe a number of factors. I'm asking about those specific factors, your actions, your policies.
I do not. I think that individuals...
Come on. You went to Berkeley, you went to Loyola, you're no dummy. You understand, the folks I represent, good people, they understand that when you put those kind of policies in place, that encourages, incentivizes people to come. And I haven't even talked about the biggest incentive, Mr. Secretary. The biggest incentive for people to come is they know they're going to get released. You're going to let them go. Come to America illegally. There's no wall to stop you. We won't deport you. You won't have to stay in Mexico while we check you out, and you'll get released to wherever you want to go. We'll put you on a bus. We'll put you on a plane. Now, you may have to fly in the middle of the night, because we don't want the American taxpayers who are paying for this. We don't want them to know where you're going and that we're doing this. And, of course, when they get there, I mean, this is just so common sense. Again, the folks I get the privilege of representing understand it. When they get there, you know what they're going to do? They're going to get on their phone. It may not be the phone you gave them, but they're going to get on their phone, and they're going to call back home and they'll say, hey, come to America. Mayorkas is letting you in. But they won't even call. They'll probably FaceTime. Hey, look, I made it. Show it around. That's what they're going to do. That's what your policies have incentivized. And the part that bugs me is that is so unfair to the American taxpayer and the American citizen. And maybe most importantly, Mr. Secretary, I think that's unfair to the people who came here legally, the immigrants who did it the right way. I think it's unfair to them. I think it's spitting in their face. Your policies are driving this influx we have seen, the record after record.
Ranking Member Jordan, can I answer your question?
So I just paused.
Because I want to speak of one success. But first I'll return very quickly to the issue of fentanyl and opioid overdose deaths. In 2020, there were approximately 50% more opioid deaths in this country than over 2019. 2020 versus 2019 . The scourge of illegal drugs in this country.
Let me ask you this. I want you to answer the question of your actions and your policies are driving and incentivizing people to come. People with common sense know that they are. Let me ask you this. Do you think when you release 836,225 illegal immigrants into our country, do you think that that is actually accomplishing the objective of the cartels? These people pay the cartels money to get here, pay them lots of money, for them lots of money, to get here, and then you're actually releasing them. Isn't that sort of accomplishing the objective of the cartel?
Congressman, those are individuals who have claimed asylum under our laws. Let me speak of one success since I didn't have an opportunity to answer your question. In 2010, when I was in the Department of Homeland Security, I was told that one of the infirmities in our system is it takes 6 to 8 years between the time of encounter at the border and the time of a final adjudication of an asylum claim. That was in 2010. Nothing was done to address that until this administration. We
And as
promulgated...
Mr. Gates pointed out, Mr. Secretary, 1.2 million of them went through that process. They're supposed to be removed, and you're not doing it.
We promulgated an asylum
And you're not
officer
doing
rule.
it.
We promulgated an asylum officer rule that is taking effect at the end of May.
Let me ask
That
you
will
one last
actually
thing.
take that
42 illegal immigrants were encountered at our border are on the terrorist and no-fly list. Are any of them still in our country?
Gentleman's time has expired.
This is an important question for this committee. Are any of them still in our country?
Congressman, I will
The witness
deliver
can.
to you a response with respect
No,
to...
that's a simple
position.
question. Are terrorists people on the terrorist watch list, no-fly list, are they still in the United States that you've encountered on the border?
Congressman, some of them may be still in detention. So I will...
Have any of them been released? Have any of them been released?
Time has expired.
This is critical for the...
Recognizes.
You got 42, have they been released? Can the gentleman answer that question?
Congressman, I will provide you with the
Thank you,
data.
They may
Madam
have been released.
Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member, I believe it is my time.
Madam Chair, if I could just 1 second. I'm
No,
sorry.
the gentleman's time has expired. Ms.
We
Jayapal.
want to know if terrorists, people on the terrorist watch list, have any of them been released, and
Mr.
he won't answer that
Secretary,
question.
it is, Mr. Jordan, it is my time.
But this is about people.
It is my time.
That's a pretty
Gentleman's
important
time has
question.
expired.
That's a pretty important question.
Thank you.
I can't believe
Secretary
that the
Mayorkas.
majority doesn't want to know the answer to that
Ranking
question.
Member Jordan.
Madam Chair, point of order. Ms. Jayapal is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Gordon, as I mentioned before, I will provide that data to you with respect to the disposition of each one. I do not know the answer to your question.
The Secretary of
As I sit
Homeland
here today.
Security does not know the answer to the status of 42 individuals who came to our southern border illegally, are on the no-fly list and the terrorist watch list. You do not know whether they are been released or not into the country. That's your testimony.
Ranking Member Jordan, as I've said before, I will provide you the data. I do
Yield
not
back to the
want
gentleman. That's amazing. I
Mr.
yield back to-
Secretary, this is outrageous. At your oath of office ceremony on February 2, 2021, you said, quote, "The mission of the Department of Homeland Security is to safeguard the American people, our homeland, and our values." On the website of DHS, it describes the mission. It says the Department of Homeland Security secures the nation's air, land, and sea borders to prevent illegal activity and is focused on securing our borders and keeping our communities safe. Sir, you're the 7th Secretary of Homeland Security in charge of the 3rd largest federal department in the United States and the largest immigration system in the world. You are given immense power and an absolutely critical responsibility. Of all of our federal agencies, sir, I think yours is the one that has the smallest margin of error. Because if the Secretary of Homeland Security is unable or unwilling to give these answers, to perform his duties and accomplish his mission, crime surges, chaos ensues, and innocent people die. And Mr. Mayorkas, that is exactly what is happening on your watch. All of us have been down the border. We've seen this with our own eyes, and we are outraged. And so are our constituents and all law-abiding citizens in this country. They're outraged because of your deliberate and defiant policies. These are the documented facts. We have a literal invasion of lawless masses flooding over our border from more than 160 countries. The safety and security of the American people are being directly threatened, and innocent children, sir, are being abducted, assaulted, raped, and murdered by human traffickers. Countless numbers of known terrorists and vicious gang members are clearly coming across our border and making their way into our communities all over the country. The precious treasure of American taxpayers is being used to incentivize and reward all this because illegals are given food, clothing, health care, cell phones, welfare benefits, and the taxpayers pay for ghost flights and bus tickets so they can send them around and secretly transfer these folks into all of our communities across the country. It is your policies, and because of them, that our entire country is becoming a crime scene. And we are dealing with a humanitarian disaster that would have been unimaginable just 3 or 4 years ago. Because of your policies, the drug cartels are making billions of dollars and building their empires, and they are drowning our streets in fentanyl and other deadly substances, and that has made drug overdoses, as you know now, the #1 cause of death for Americans ages 18 to 45. Our brave Border Patrol and law enforcement agencies and officers are completely overwhelmed, and they are personally endangered. And the rule of law is being trampled underfoot, and the stability and the very sovereignty of our nation is being threatened like never before. I have a long list of questions I was anxious to ask you today, but I've been watching you. You know, you've been on Capitol Hill for 3 days now. You've been in 3 committees. You have an extraordinary talent, I think, for evading questions, and you've provided answers that are not accurate, and that's documented. You're insulting the intelligence of the American people, and you're subjecting them to extraordinary danger. This is not a game. It's been detailed over and over this week, and here again today. You have presided over the greatest immigration catastrophe in American history, and it's an objective truth that you have helped design and implement this system. You took your oath of office in February last year, and by the end of the first year, ICE recorded the highest number of border crossings and the lowest number of deportations in history. Fact. You have stated publicly in direct defiance of our laws that, quote, being here illegally by itself is not enough to be removed, unquote. If DHS does not deport illegals, that is, apprehend and quickly remove people who cross into our country illegally, then we have no border security at all. We all know that after Title 42 is repealed, 18,000 immigrants a day are going to result coming over that border. It's going to be a total collapse of our operational control. If people are allowed to simply walk in here and live and work and collect taxpayer-funded benefits and assistance for years upon years and maybe permanently, then in a very short period of time, we'll be totally overwhelmed. We'll be crushed by the sheer numbers and the weight of illegal immigration, and there will no longer be any border, any security here, any sovereignty at all. We won't have a country. I called for your resignation in July of last year and explained then that it had already become crystal clear that you were either unable or unwilling to do your job. But as has been said here today now, based upon the facts and the evidence, we've concluded you're doing this intentionally. It is despicable. I believe these are impeachable offenses, and Mr. Secretary, my advice to you is to begin your search for a different career field very soon, because there will be an election and the American people will let their voices be heard on this, and we will be taking the majority. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from 133 members of Congress to the Secretary expressing our concern that his actions in opening our border and inaction in enforcing our laws are endangering American lives.
Without objection, and the time of the gentleman has expired, Mr. Swalwell.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, there have been over 1 million plus individuals put into proceedings or released into the United States on your watch. I've asked multiple Border Patrol personnel, not the union, mind you, if we double, triple, quadruple the CBP budget, would that 1 million release go down? And they categorically said no, it would go up. Do you agree, yes or no?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Congressman. With the addition...
With the number of people being released in the United States under current law, would it go down no matter how much you increased your budget? And it would not, as they said. Do you agree, yes or no?
Congressman, if I understand your question correctly, when individuals are in the United States and they make a claim for asylum...
So the number would not go down, is the answer, right? Yes or no? That's what they said, and I think you just answered it. It would not go down. The only plan that you offer, the plan you just offered, is to process aliens faster and encourage more to come. We know that to be true. I know it's true. You know it's true. Cartels know it's true, and people around the world know it's true, and that's why people are coming.
That is false.
The secure, it's not false.
Yes, it is.
The entirety of your plan says that. The Secure Fence Act of 2006 says what? That the Secretary of Homeland Security shall take all actions the Secretary determines necessary to achieve and maintain operational control over the entire international land and maritime borders. Will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. And
we have operational control of the borders.
Yes, we do. And Congressman, we are working to...
Listen what operational control defined. In this section, the term operational control means the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband. Do you stand by in your testimony that we have operational control in light of this definition?
We do. And Congressman, I think the Secretary of Homeland Security would have said the same thing in 2020 and in 2019.
No, well, the Secretary would have at least had a basis for saying that we have some sort of control of the border. But the fact is, we currently have people flowing across the border, including dangerous narcotics and dangerous members of terrorists, which your own agency sent a letter to my office after 8 months. We sent a letter saying there are 42 people on the terrorist watch list that are in the United States. But you just said to Mr. Jordan, you don't even know where the hell they are. And that's what you're saying is operational control, including entries by terrorists and unlawful aliens? It's not. It's not operational control. Mr. Secretary, let me ask you a question. When we're looking ahead and we're talking about asylum, okay? Here, if the officer determines at the time of the interview that an alien has a credible fear of persecution, the alien shall be detained for further consideration. Mandatory detention. Any alien subject to the procedure under this clause shall be detained, pending a final determination of credible fear of persecution. Is everyone being detained? Yes or no?
No, and as a matter of fact, Congressman, that is an issue that is before the United States Supreme Court. And
the fact of the matter is our law says they should be detained, and your agency is releasing people on purpose in order to flood the zone and make sure that more people can come to the United States. And you use parole to do it. Parole of aliens within the following groups have been retained. Come down here on a case-by-case basis. for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. Yet your office is using parole. But when you use parole, the fact is they're not showing back up to ICE. Your own letter to Senator Johnson, to this committee, have acknowledged they're not showing back up to ICE. How can you be saying that you have operational control or that we're securing the United States when they're not showing back up?
Congressman, are you actually interested in the facts and the law?
Yeah, I'm reading you the law, and I'm actually talking to you about the facts about who's into this country.
Actually, you're
now let's actually go to something that's
Chairman, can the witness be allowed to answer the question?
Well, there wasn't a question there to be answered.
Gentleman's
on that specific
time.
point. Now let's talk about the damage being done to the United States of America. Mr. Secretary, do you know what this is? This is a mobile morgue, a body trailer, needed by counties in South Texas overwhelmed by dead migrants. That particular trailer is filled with these bodies, 27 bodies that were stored in this mobile morgue in South Texas with dead bodies of migrants. Dead bodies like this one found on a ranch just 3 weeks ago in South Texas. A dead migrant. Somehow that's compassion. How about the dead bodies found by migrants? Compassion. How about the ranchers who had to walk out of their door, and this is what they faced. Gentlemen with rocks threatening a rancher in South Texas, only able to be saved when they were able to bring their dogs out to scare the people away in order to save themselves. Or the fact that you've got houses being attacked, you've got livestock dead on the side because we've got ranches wide open. How about the little girl here with a brand on her arm? A little girl with a brand on her arm because of your policies. A little girl here in the desert found by ranchers trying to save their life. And how about the lost voices for people dying from fentanyl? The tens of thousands of Americans dying from fentanyl. Faces of Americans across this country dying because of fentanyl pouring into our country.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
You know full well.
The time of the gentleman has expired, Ms.
Encouraging people to come here, harming Texas and harming this country. You know it. And you're ignoring the
time of the gentleman has expired. He no longer has time to sleep.
Congressman, I think what we need is legislation to fix the broken immigration system. Because
you don't need legislation to overcome a final order of removal, right? Look, I get it. You want comprehensive immigration reform and a big amnesty thing. Very unlikely that's going to happen. So we have to operate under the laws that exist now. So under the laws that exist now, a judge has told 1.2 million people that they have no right to be here. Do you plan to remove those 1.2 million people?
Congressman, with the resources we have, and I would appreciate the opportunity to answer your question fully, with the resources we have to allocate those resources.
How much money do you need to deport all of them? How much money? How many agents? To deport the 1.2 million who a judge has said has no right to be here?
Congressman, there are a number of questions that your question raises with respect to whether all of those individuals actually have been given due process?
No, they have.
Yes,
these are the people who've had the due process, okay? And here's the point. You have no plan to remove them. You don't know how many ICE agents it would take, and you don't know how much money it would take, because you actually don't want to remove them. That's why you issued the September 30th guidance that says, well, you know, if you haven't committed a crime and you just came to our country illegally, we're not going to remove you. Isn't that your position?
No, it isn't, Congressman, not at all.
Well, then what is your plan to remove the 1.2 million?
Let me, if I may.
Do you have one?
Yes, we do. If I may, Congressman, as a former prosecutor, let me ask you a question. If one has a finite amount of resources and one has a finite number of hours, and one has a choice of removing 20 shoplifters or 3 fugitive armed bank robbers, how would you spend your time?
Well, I know how you've spent yours. I know how you've spent yours by decreasing by 48% the number of criminals you arrest, by deporting 63% fewer convicted criminals. You have the lowest deportation rate in the history of the department, right?
Your data that you cite is misleading.
No, it's your data. This is actually what your own agency is reporting. So do you think that it just might be the case that one reason that we will encounter the highest number of illegal immigrations in our nation's history this month and next month, because everybody knows that even if they come here, even if they go through the removal procedures, even if a judge issues a final order, you still think there might be more due process, and you have no plan to remove them. And then when I ask you what the plan is, you say, oh, well, resources, I got to make finite decisions. I go back to my first question. How many ICE agents to remove the 1.2 million?
Congressman, I'd be pleased to provide you with a resourcing data subsequent to this hearing, if I may.
And I think it's telling that I think it's telling that you got plans for pronouns and you got plans for misinformation. But when it comes to the plan to remove the people that have had due process, you don't have one at all. Now, 800,000 people have encountered your CBP agents, and those folks have been released into the country. Like, some of those people are going to commit crimes, aren't they?
Congressman, may I have a moment to answer your questions?
Will some of the 800,000 commit crimes, yes or no?
Undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly. And so the Americans who are the victims of the crimes for the people that you release in the country are collateral damage that you are willing to accept in order to have our border function as a turnstile. You're willing to accept that collateral damage.
Congressman, I couldn't disagree with you more. Let me give you, if I can, some data that will actually...
Well, more than the data, how about this?
Well,
how did it feel to you when you went to the border and the Border Patrol agents turned their back on you?
One Border Patrol agent turned his back on me, and I addressed that as
the
leader of the Department of Homeland Security. So if I can return to data, because I want to make sure that you have accurate information.
Everyone knows that you have more people coming in than ever, and you're removing fewer people than ever, and it's because you have no plan and because it's on purpose. See, I don't buy the theory that you don't know how to do this. I think you're actually a highly competent dude. But the reality is, your plan is to bring these people in and to send the message to the smugglers and the criminals that they will never have to leave. That's why your workforce turns their back on you. And you have tools that you could use to deport these people. You have facial recognition. You have flights going all over the country, dropping people off. And I think we ought to use the best tools in the country to find these folks, round them up like they were at the Capitol on January 6th, and deport every last one of them. I yield back.